Hello, hello, and welcome to a Tuesday show, another show in Maximum Growth Live. Hi, Seth. How you doing today?
Doing well, Jay. It's a bright, sunny day, and just loving the fact that we're getting a little bit of fall.
Yeah, it's a little nip in the air. It's not a bad thing. I spent my weekend basically on a little league field. We've got a developmental league over the weekend, so I was coaching for 4.5 hours on Saturday, and I was playing with the kids for 5 hours on Sunday, and I am so friggin' sore and stiff from running around with these little 6 and 7 year olds learning how to play baseball. But it was a lot of fun getting to do it. What'd you do? Anything fun this weekend?
Well, we had the Jewish New Year,
Oh, that's right.
which was
Happy New
very,
Year.
very surreal. Something that's normally like one of the holiest days of the year. You're sitting with your family in the living room on a Zoom. It was just very, very unlike anything I'd seen before. And the combination of that and the passing of RBG, a sucker gut punch to the gut. You felt sad at the same time, angry. It was a lot of our friends and neighbors are have been heading down to the Supreme Court. It's quite a scene down there, just watching all the emotions pour out.
Yeah, I saw a picture of the flowers left on the steps of the Supreme Court. That was just mind blowing. How many people had left tributes there? It was really kind of cool to see. Definitely cool to see.
For me, she'd always had a special place in my heart. My mom's, she was in my mom's bunk at camp. My mom was a camper, and she was one of the tennis counselors. Her good friend from Cornell was my mom's counselor. So they lived together for a summer.
Wow, that is super, super cool. I appeared in front of her twice at the Supreme Court. Basically, I was moving the admission of some other lawyers. I said nothing to her. She said nothing to me. But, we sort of made eye contact, and I think she knew, all about me from that eye contact.
I in later years, just the last year or two, I landed at LaGuardia. And I noticed a bunch of security people, not normal, in the concourse. So I was waiting for my next flight, and I looked around, and sure as anything, Ruth Bader Ginsburg walks off the plane, and wow. She looked like older grandma type. But what was so impressed is she had this huge security detail with her, not huge, but a couple people. And she insisted on carrying her own bag. They're trying to take the bag from her. She's like, nope, I'm carrying my own bag. I'm good.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool. Okay, so we have done a lot recently about one of the websites that I launched, thelicensedlawyers.com, and it sort of sparked up another conversation with us recently about SEO, right? And what do you do? And you've gotten on me. So why don't you tell our audience, some of the choice things, maybe clean it up a little for them about what you said to me about SEO and my failings in SEO.
Well, look, this is said with love. Jay and I have known each other for over a decade, and we met during some marketing sort of clubs and groups in the DUI space a long, long time ago. And as those of you who know me, I geek out on the digital marketing. I built the firm on it. I started with a single site. It was a $50 templated site, like a Wix is today. It was a just random site. It was $50 a month, and every month I'd add a new bell and whistle to it. So the $50 a month became $100, became $200. I ended up with everything this company did. It was $500 a month, and that was and I did my own link building, my own content, and it worked really well. I was so proud of it. My designer friends, a good buddy of mine, Adam Seidel, would laugh at it because this is nonsense. It's a template site. And I'm like, but it makes money. And I thought it was awesome. So over the years have evolved. We've designed, we've added a lot of content. We've coded the sites. We went to WordPress exclusively, and we build links. So much so that, as you know, we created Blue Shark. So Blue Shark, in one sense, was something that was created in order to scale price benefits, because keeping in-house people, when I spun out our in-house team, it was probably 7 or 8 people at the time when it became Blue Shark. And now it's 50 plus people, plus overseas contractors and writers. I mean, it's a large operation. But what it allowed was the scaling of high quality SEO that would otherwise be very tough to do, because, as you know, keeping and retaining marketing talent, not easy. So this conversation comes from the fact that Jay has Ruane Attorneys and has had it for how long?
Over a decade now. I mean, it started off as ctdwi.com. So in 20 years, I've had 2 domain names for that.
Right, but you merged it in. You
I merged
redirected.
Ruane Attorneys in probably about 12, 13 years ago.
Right. So it's for most of modern digital history, you've had this Ruane Attorneys. And what's fascinating to me is that in that time, you were in early. If somebody's starting a firm today, it's an uphill battle, right? They have to age the domain. Your domain's in a sandbox for a while. And then after you get it out of there, you then have all this competition. If you're doing PI in Atlanta, downtown, good luck, right? There are places that are prohibitive to enter. Other areas, not so much. If you picked a random town in Connecticut and said, I'm going to do DUI there, and you were away from the main competition,
you do fine.
Put something in. But you were in early. And one of those things, and look, you've done very well for yourself. You've had an advanced PPC campaign. You've loved social. And I always talk, you do what you love. You love social. You moved into that. You loved PPC. You found a wonderful woman to help you with that early on. And you sort of developed that campaign. Nothing wrong with it. We've had friends like our buddy David Hanel. He doubled down on Avo and made a lot of money with Avo during those very formative years of Avo. So there's no right or wrong answer. But the thing that I've always given you flack for was, with some time and attention, knowing what you know, having been to conferences, having friends with myself, you call me anti-social. I almost call you anti-SEO in the sense that had you paid your dues as far as strategic content, as far as coding websites, as far as link building, if you had done those fundamentals, you would have a sort of a fortress digitally in Connecticut for what you're doing. And that while you do very well and you come up in many searches for many terms, you certainly, I think you would admit, you are not as ubiquitous as you could be in that area had that been a passion or a sort of mission for you, whereas you looked at other areas of developing business, didn't scale your in-house team or really use an outside agency extensively, used it for advice, but that it was a strategic decision the way you made we all have paths we take, that you were going to build this. Paid is great because you pay the money, you get the cases, with some ROI, and that you were going to, sort of move and experiment in social and other areas. It's sort of a fascinating case study of like a path not traveled of 2 guys who started around the same time, you actually before me, not doubling down on that, and whether or not there are sort of things that could be reaped, had you done it, or if you were to do it today, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I mean, my main thing about SEO is that early on, I was, before I knew you, I was the guy who had an HTML site, and I was personally changing my keywords back when you could put keywords into your HTML code. I was changing my title tags myself. I was making things H1s or H2s depending on what I wanted to identify with. And this was back when I had binders, right? Lycos, Hotbot, Alta Vista, Yahoo. And I would run these searches before Google existed. I would run these searches on the first of every month. And I would see what would happen to my website. Where would it be? And so that was, I had done some of that stuff early on.
Oh, absolutely. And when I met you, you dominated the search engines. Yeah. If you went to Connecticut, there were no other choices. You were there.
Yeah. And in the intervening years, I think, other people have been able to gain, probably because they've been doing the link building and stuff that I have not done. Here's my approach that I was going to do it. What I learned early on was that you could get into a lot of trouble with link building. And I have plenty of friends who went out there and they bought out, 1,000 links or 5,000 links from a link farm in the Philippines. And then that worked great for 3 months. And then all of a sudden, an algorithm change happened, and now they're spending days and weeks disavowing links and trying to get back to where they were.
And to be fair, there were timing is everything, like the stock market, but there were people that played that game for years when Google said, "Hey, don't spam us." I dabbled in it, but I was not heavy in it. We know that people who were heavy in it paid a dramatic price.
Huge, like crush, like they're basically their domain became worthless. And I think Google has kept a blacklist of some domains because you've never seen them get back up. They've actually just gone and started a whole new domain.
And I have a buddy on the West Coast who basically was tripling down, and he said, you know what, forget it. I'm going all pay-per-click. I don't like the idea of not knowing. And to me, yes, that is
that's
a risk
Scorpion
and an
model,
angst.
right? Basically, that's Scorpion, right? They go heavy into pay-per-click.
Right.
You know?
It would not necessarily a great spend on it, but yes, that we could spend a whole show talking about what they do or don't do. But I think that the key is, look, that was what, 6-7 years ago? And there's been a lot of time since. I feel like to a certain extent, we all play at a certain emotional level. And that I feel like you felt like I dodged a bullet there, but it's one of those deals where I had always wanted for you to continue that dominance, and knowing what I know, it wouldn't take that much for you to have that. The incremental extra effort was nominal.
Right. So here's what I did with it when it comes to this. I knew. And early on in this process, a buddy of mine was out in Las Vegas with his wife, and he was at the Hard Rock Cafe, and he was
Hard Rock Hotel,
at the Hard Rock Hotel, and he was having dinner with his wife. And when he had dinner with his wife, at the next table over was a table full of people from Google, and he texts me. He says, there's people from Google at the table next to me. I've got to find out what it takes to be number one at Google. And so he goes up to them, and they were celebrating. They had a champagne on the table, and I think it's because they had just been given their stock options or whatever, but they were out there celebrating something. And he says to the people at Google, look, I got $1,000 right here. Tell me what it takes to be number one on your platform, because that's where I want to be. And they turned to him and they said, it's content. And that caused me to think. And I said, you know what? You can game a lot of things. You can game directories. You can game link building. But you really can't game content, because good content is hard to do. Good content takes effort. And good content is what keeps people on your page. So instead of me bringing in a link builder and focusing on that, about a decade ago, I found someone who was an English major out of college who liked to do professional writing, and I brought her in-house. And I have had her in-house. She's now a partner with me at FirmFlex, but I've had her in-house for a decade, and we have been churning content. Now, I have not been developing links for that content, but we went from being a 130-page website over the last decade to now 4,000 pages on Ruane attorneys. We've got 1,000-page other niche sites that we're doing, that we've got tons of content. We've put out a dozen books on Amazon that have all turned into things, plus tons of podcasts and
look, Jay, you're not going to hear any disagreement from me. That is brilliant. And look, it's a part of the formula. It was one of those things. And look, high quality content will always work. And if Google had its way, that would be it.
Right.
But they didn't, like your buddy. I don't think because Google has said publicly that the two biggest factors are content and links. A, right. And B, it's, there is a technical side to this, mm-hmm. which is not nothing. So to me, it's a trifold, putting local aside, and local very, very important. I'm not trying to minimize it, but let's talk about SEO itself without local for a second. It's the content. And again, it sounds like that is there. But the question is, to me, there are two missing ingredients in the recipe, which are, if you can show the Google bot why that content is great. Google is smart. It can read mm-hmm. the content, but why when I heard about you, did we become buddies? Partially because you're a great guy, I like hanging out with you, but everywhere I went, they're like, oh, did you meet Jay Ruane? So all these people kept talking to me about you. And so it's one of those things that not only was there great content, was great, Jay, a great guy, but all these other people were like, jumping up and down that I had to meet you. And so to me, it's a combination of making sure there's great content, but making sure other people are advocating for you. So to me, it's not link building where there's a maniacal guy in the background who's spamming things. Yes, get rid of that. But it's literally almost like a PR agent that says, Jay's spoken at these 50 places. we need to hit the phones. So instead of doing X, Y, or Z with my time, instead of writing another book, I'm going to make sure that every one of the places that's referenced to me, that they are each sending a vote, a backlink back to me. You've done favors for more people than I think anybody I know in our greater legal space. If each of those people somehow showed that through reviews on local, if each of the people, if the content that you spend all this time and effort to create was coded in a way that kept up with best practices, where schema was being leveraged and your title tags were best practices, those things, you've already done the hard work. That's the irony of this to me. You have done the hard work, and you've shown this for national searches. You're always, tilting at a windmill with some great long tail searches for very specific types of injuries and accidents. And I love, we've done some practice projects together. You've done some on your own, and you have demonstrated that content in niche areas alone can really move the needle.
I mean, you've seen my elevator site and my amusement park site. I mean, I think I rank number one nationally for bumper car accidents.
Right.
Zero link building.
Understood.
Just content.
Understood. But with the replicable time, but the replicable widget that you want, you made a lot of money representing people from DUI cases over the years, and you may have other criminal cases, that there is a money widget. We talk about a widget, meaning a product that makes you X amount of money. If you're a PI person, it's the car accident case. If the average case is X dollars and you get a third of it, that's your widget. We talk to lawyers about each of their things. So if the DUI, a very lucrative widget because it's people in the criminal justice system, it has big consequences on their life, and they generally have money. So you're not fighting the public defender system. It's like people who need you and are willing to pay. And to me, once you've done the content, which to me is so freaking hard to do well, and you do it very, very well, that the idea that you are now going to just say, okay, it's there, but rather than saying, hey, these are all the people that think that this is great, and get those backlinks in. And here, Google, we know that you're not a human being. There's a bot crawling the site. What are the signals that we can use that you give us? They give you a title tag. Right. And then back in the day, as you know, if you changed your title tag, you'd show up.
Right. Yeah.
If you put Britney Spears as your title tag, you'd show up for Britney Spears. Like, obviously that's come and gone. But when you're competing for that widget and your competitors have even a modicum of links, you're not like, you are special. You have done stuff, been in the business, care, you have scaled, you've done all these things that are very hard to do. And it's sort of like, when I look at it, again, a path not traveled, that with that extra effort, you would be able to make sure that the Johnny come lately was not surpassing you. Now, look, even with perfect link building, there are going to be days where the algorithm changes. And we saw that a few weeks ago. One night, 3 weeks ago, everybody who was 1 through 3 was on the 5th page. Overnight, bounced back. Then I've seen stuff where I've been number one for everything. Weird stuff. I was number one Wednesday through Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday through Wednesday afternoon, we'd be like 4, 5, and 6. There's a lot of frustration, non-certainty, and I can understand why somebody throws up their hands and say, you know what, I don't want to be in that game. But given that you are theoretically the answer that Google wants, right? You know what you're doing. You've been in the business. You have a footprint that allows people to solve their problem and have a good user experience. Anything you can do once you spend the time, effort, and money on that content is to say, hey, Google bot, this is where that content is. And hey, if the bot's going to see that technical side, what are the votes that are saying, you know what, you are the rock star that myself and much of our audience knows you are?
So one of the challenges that I think I should explain to the audience is that years ago, having attended PubCon, I sought out the opportunity to start trying to get some links built by some of these vendors, and I'll call them out by name and tell you, I tried having the Hoff build some links for me, and their product was terrible. I mean, they were placing stuff on irrelevant pages. They were telling me the link was there and the link wasn't on the page. I was so disillusioned. And they weren't the only one. I used a couple other services that were out there.
It's funny you say that, and because PubCon, for those that don't know, is sort of like the industry's industry show. And I remember I went to a small seminar and realized, hey, I wanted to learn about SEO. I stopped going to legal conferences for a while and started going to the digital conferences. That was how I got my real impetus. And then all of a sudden, Jay was showing up there. And what was interesting was when you walked the trade show floor, those vendors which were there, which were not legal specific,
Right.
were ones that they always seemed incredibly overpriced and not relevant to our world. They were all targeting the Macy's, the enterprise level people that were doing things where either they didn't care or didn't know, or it took so much to move the needle that it was just a different game. Like the corporate B2B world, so different than our micro world. So I feel your pain, because every year I'd walk in, I get all these business cards, I come home and I price the stuff and I'm like, there's no way I can get ROI from this. Right. And that's partially why I built it myself, because I realized that.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I said, you know what, I'm not going to. I talked to Page One Power, and it was too much, and the Hoth came back to me with something within budget, and the product was terrible, and I said, you know what, I'm just not going to. I'm going to invest my time in culture, in content, and in pay-per-click, and doing other stuff, because you can game all these things you want, and Google will catch up with you. That was my philosophy.
It's not. I think it's not the gaming, but rather the architecture. And so my personal take, this, we might need a therapist couch at this point, is that to you, it was a badge of honor that you were able to build a successful practice without it. And look, it's Absolutely. Not like you don't come up in search. You right. do, but it's certainly not ubiquitous. And there are areas that you have the best content for that you still are not getting the love you should be getting.
Probably. But when you go to the Google suggested search at the bottom of the page and you type in anything related to DUI, it says Ruane attorneys. So, I mean, I'm being recognized by the
Understood.
By the
but the question is, can you become ubiquitous? And again, in the social offline world, you are. You can't be on a listserv without, if somebody says I need a Connecticut DUI lawyer, I have never seen a posting where there's not 4 to 6 people that raise their hand and say, Jay's your guy. So that, and we talked about that years ago. That's an awesome effect. I just think that you have left money on the table because there is the ability to insulate yourself and to build it up. And that look, you'll never go wrong with content. You've been very smart like that, but that it's sort of like, the chocolate and peanut butter. It's that much better together. And when, Reese's, if they had just had a chocolate bar, no, Hershey's done perfectly fine for themselves, but that Reese's is what my kids clamor for when we go to the mini mart.
Well, there you have it, folks. That is it. I am the chocolate bar, and Seth is my peanut butter, and you are with Maximum Growth Live's Tuesday Show. There's a really good conversation that we had there, and I don't want to get into the weeds, because I think some people might get overwhelmed by it. But whatever you do when it comes to your digital marketing, I think the takeaway is make sure you're making that decision yourself, and you can justify that decision. Like me, I've made certain decisions, and I am sure that if I invested a different way, but I also had a phenomenal content writer that I wanted to keep around. So I was giving her raises and keeping her more motivated to be in my practice, and I didn't want to lose that opportunity. In fact, she was with me, left to go to grad school. I found a way to keep her during grad school, brought her back after grad school type of thing, and now have her working with me in FirmFlex. And that's happened with you, Seth, with David. I mean, you had a phenomenal team member that you didn't want to lose, and so that's how Blue Shark almost came to be, is that you wanted to.
No, he was like, dude, let's do it. And I was, that he started as an intern at the law firm, and he's now president of a multi-million-dollar organization. So
and he knows his stuff. I mean, I can remember last year being in Las Vegas, being in Miami in January. I mean, everything's sort of sitting with him, and we were geeking out over talking about geotagged images on certain pages, and if that's a signal to Google. And it's just, he's really into that sort of thing. And so when you find the talent that you have, you kind of build around that talent. I didn't have a link builder. I had someone who's good on content, and I've been able to get better at the architecture now that my brother has come off the road and he's doing stuff. So our websites have gotten better and faster and all those things. So I think 5 years from now, we might be in a position where we're probably still having this link building conversation, but not necessarily about some of the other stuff.
And to me, what I want for you and everybody else to have your cake and eat it too. To me, it's like, it wouldn't be the incremental effort to sort of round the edges is not that much, and that given you have this ridiculous FU authority, wanting to make sure that it's not something that Google shows intermittently, but rather as that piece. And I'll leave you with this. When Google starts to like content, like it knows there's content there, but in a competitive space, once it likes a page, that is one of those magical things, because that's where a page can come up statewide. We can spend all our time building pages for content for every little town. And I love it. Like, I still want to do it. It's tough because the law is the same. So you have to make them different. They can't be copied. But when you can find a way to show Google that this is the master page for something, it takes things to a different level. And that's where you can see, as with PPC, Google's smarter than us. They cap your ROI. If you get 3-to-1 ROI there, for most people, that's a pretty good place to be with PPC. There are days when you don't get that. You don't want to acknowledge it, but there are a lot of campaigns that don't hit that. So the idea that you can leverage the entire SEO portfolio to get those 7, 8, 9, 10-to-1 ROI, that doesn't exist in the paid place. It's a lot more certain, and there's nothing wrong with it. We've both used it. I mean, to me, I was like, hey, it did $1,000 a month, doubled it to two. I may be at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month in PPC. But that said, to me, that is what helps even out those fluctuations, but that you can get real significant ROI through the organic side. You just can't get through the paid side generally.
Cool. Well, there's a lot to digest, folks. It's a lot to take in, but it's certainly something that you got to recognize, that you can go your own path, and really you got to do what you feel right, what is right for you.
And what you're passionate about. If you love it, you're going to do it. You love content.
I've been passionate about content. I mean, that's really, and I focused our attention, and even when it comes to social, we are passionate about content. We came up with this, does a straw have one hole or two? That was a thing that got a lot of play on social media. We actually had lawyers debate it in our office, one side versus the other. We did the donut tour on social media. That got hundreds of thousands of views. Content is my thing. I like to do that. I'm not a technical guy. I'm not that I've never really been a technical guy. You can go back and talk to my father about the way I was in high school as I was learning Latin. I would see 6 words in Latin, and I would make up a sentence of what those words could be. Had no bearing on what the actual sentence was, because I didn't care what was a verb, what something went. I was just like, okay, those are the 6 words. Let's make up a sentence and move on. I was just more the creative guy. That's who I am, I guess, in my mind. But what we're going to do next, Seth, is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, after we hear from some of our sponsors, we're going to have Ryan with another edition of Just Book It. So what I want to do is I want to tee that up now. We'll bring him in, and then after that, before we end the show, there's going to be yet another new segment. It's called Maximum Tech. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to walk people through my travel production set. So I have lights, a camera stand, and a phone stand, and a smartphone holder. And I'm going to demonstrate all the different things that I use when I take some of this production on the road, when I'm doing some of my videos and my content creating on the road. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set up my computer in a different location and use that equipment. And so I'll take you down and take over the screen to be able to do that. So what we're going to do is we'll cut away now, and then we'll go back to Ryan. And then when we come back out of Ryan, it'll go to my segment, and then you and I will be able to wrap up the show. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. We'll be right back, folks, with the Tuesday edition of Just Book It with Ryan McKean.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
Hi, it's Ryan McKean here with this week's episode of Just Book It, and I'm really excited to review this book, Giftology, by John Ruhlin. Giftology was recommended to me by my good friend and all of our good friend John Fisher, and it is a fantastic book, especially as we start heading into the holiday season and start thinking about gifts for others. First, the book is very, very short, so if you're looking for something quick to read or you like any of the concepts that I talk about here today, pick up the book. Definitely pick it up because it's a quick read and a quick listen. And we all know that gifting can be very important. Gifting is very important in our culture. It's very important for relationships. And in marketing, it's very important because we're hoping to trigger the reciprocity reflex and get things in return for what it is we're gifting. And what Giftology does is sort of takes the mystery out of gifting and makes it into a science. And I just want to go into, just some points that I thought about from the book that I otherwise maybe wouldn't have thought about. And, one of the first points was that themed gifts are really good. So, for example, you want to get somebody something. The first week you get them a nice ice cream bowl, and then a week later you get them a nice ice cream scoop. Then you get them nice spoons to go with the ice cream, and then you send them maybe your favorite ice cream. You pick it up and you give them your favorite ice cream in week 5. So what you've done is you've stretched out the gift over a period of weeks, and you could do the same thing over a year or months. So at the end of the gift, somebody has a complete set of something, and that is a really effective way to give. Another point is that everybody does Christmas gifts, and that's great, or holiday gifts, but there's a lot of value to be held from randomly gifting, from gifting things that are unexpected at unexpected times. Those kinds of gifts have the most impact on people, so start thinking maybe you want to do mid-October gifts. And surprise some people with what it is that you're giving out as opposed to holding back for holiday gifts. John talks about in the book, he talks about how the gift really needs to be about the recipient. You don't want to be putting things with your logo on them. That defeats the purpose. What you want to do is you want to give them the thing that they'll use. Maybe it's a great LL Bean tote bag that they're going to use for years and years and years, and every time they use it, they're going to think about you, and you don't need to put your logo on it. You don't need to brand that. That is going to be a connection that the person is going to have with you. Another point that he makes in the book that I think is really important is that gifts, if you have a good relationship with somebody, gifts to the spouse or somebody important in the person's life or the kids can be very, very effective. So if you know somebody who has young kids, maybe getting them a Nintendo Switch or something that excites the young kids, that is going to have a tremendous impact. It's going to show how thoughtful you are. Again, it's got to be the right person. You've got to have the right relationship. It might be very odd to just send gifts to people's kids who are acquaintances, but if they're close relationships, those kinds of gifts can mean a lot. Another thing that they talk about a lot is your vendors, and your vendors as being referral sources. So consider gifting, and they could be small gifts, to people who are your vendors, and that could simply be, you have the FedEx guy who delivers your packages. Maybe you have some candy out for him when he comes in, and you find that that can that can connect with that FedEx guy and build your relationships through your vendors. So look for opportunities to gift big and small. Pick up this book. It's going to help you up your game, no doubt. I highly recommend it. Quick read, worthy title, worthy book. Pick it up, check it out, grow your business.
Hey there, Jay Ruane here, and this is a segment that we're calling Maximum Gear or Maximum Tech. Haven't really decided what the name's going to be. I hope you can help me out down below. Now, this is not a live segment, and it's not a live segment for a very good reason. I'm actually using some of the tech that I would be using live, and I wanted to be able to demonstrate it for you. So this segment is pre-recorded, but you'll understand why in a few minutes. So one of the things that is important to all of us as law firm owners, entrepreneurs, and people that are out and about is making sure that we have the right equipment that we can use in order to give our best foot forward online. And there's been a number of things that I've used over the years that I wanted to share with you. So maybe you can invest in them or invest in something like them to make your life easier when it comes to doing your video performances. So I've got them all laid out here. I'm going to hold them up for you, explain a little bit about them, tell you where you can get them in case it's something that you want to add to your arsenal. So first thing I want to talk a little bit about is lighting. And lighting is very, very important. As I sit here now, I've got a focus light on me. I've also got a light coming from the side. So that way I have good lighting on my screen. And one of the ways that I do that is with some Lume products. And what I have here is the Lume Cube. Now, the Lume Cube is great for lighting because when you buy it, it comes with a couple of things. First, it comes with a suction cup mount. So if you're going to be using your laptop camera, you can actually suction cup it to the front side of the camera, stick the light on it, and it can be shining right in your face. In addition to the suction cup mount that you also get these diffuser gels. One is to keep it so that it's not necessarily such harsh direct light on you. The other one helps with skin tone balance. And one of the very cool things about the Lume Cube is that, and it's tough to see here, but you actually get multiple brightness levels when you get it. And so you can, depending on how much light you need. But one of the very cool things about it is that it actually has a magnetic back. So you can actually apply it to a piece of metal to hold it up without having to use a mount if you have something close by or if you have any metal in your laptop frame. You can actually just stick it right to it, and that way you can get the light sort of directed where you want. So the Lume Cube is a great little product. It's under $100. I'll have a link below. If you're looking for a light, obviously it's something that you can get that you can add to your arsenal. It has some really strong length. It's rechargeable, which is phenomenal because it allows you to really sort of plug it, have it ready to go, and then just grip it and rip it and put it up there. Now, one of the things that I do with the Lume Cube, as you can see, there actually is a screw here for it, is that I have a Joby GorillaPod. And the thing that I like about the GorillaPod, as you can see, is that while it has the length of a standard mini tripod, the feet on it are flexible, which means that if you need to bend it around something so that you can hold it onto perhaps a pole if you're outside, or maybe you want to set it up in your car on your rear view mirror if you're going to be doing some driving and talking to people like a lot of people like to do, or put it around pretty much anything. The Joby GorillaPod is a great way to have something, and it's rather small. It allows it to, be very easily stashed in your bag. Now, Joby has a lot of different sizes of this, but one of the things that's important is that it has the same size tip end that you can get for the Lume Cube. So if you wanted to put the Lume Cube on it and have that, boom, you're ready to go. There you go. You got your light on a tripod ready to go. I've actually found the GorillaPod through Amazon Warehouse. A lot of people will buy it and return it, so you can get it at a discount by just getting one that's gently used because maybe it doesn't have its original packaging. But these things are kind of indestructible, and it's a great way to just have something that you can throw in your bag. Speaking of bags, one of the things that I got was just this little waterproof It was a DOP kit. I'm using it as a kit for all of my video stuff. So the GorillaPod fits in there. The Loom Cube and its gels fits in there. It does. I'm able to get the charging cable, which is a standard micro USB for the Loom Cube, and it all just sort of fits in there. And in addition to that, I have something called the Glyph. Now, this is the Glyph. The Glyph is a tripod mount for your smartphone. And the great thing about it is no matter what happens with sizing on your smartphone, the Glyph actually extends. So it allows you to be able to get different sizes of your smartphone in there. You could lock it down after you have the phone in there, and you can lock it at whatever height you need it to be. And of course, the great thing about the Glyph, well-designed materials, you actually have the same ending, the same threading on the top part here, so you can have your camera going in a horizontal manner, or landscape mode, or if you need to do it in a portrait mode, there's another screw hole there, so you can actually have your phone in whichever direction you need it, either landscape or portrait. So the Glyph is certainly a great little piece to have on you. And one of the cool things about the Glyph and the Joby mount, as well as the Loom Cube, is that these standard screw sizes are standard across most tripods and photography equipment. So you could even use the, excuse me, I dropped it. You can even use the suction mount for the Loom Cube with the Glyph if you needed to. So there's really a lot of flexibility here, and it's great tools to have. And of course, the last thing in my arsenal for taking things on the go is a pair of AirPods Pro. Now, I prefer the original AirPods for most of the stuff that I do. But when I'm going on the road and I'm going to be using all my equipment for maybe some video blogging or a quick Facebook Live or something like that, I'll actually use the AirPods Pro because it allows for the noise cancellation, so I can really hear what I'm saying and pick it up. So all of this just gets stuffed into my cheap under $20 DOP kit, and I'm able to just throw it in my bag and take it with me. And so it sits in the bottom of my briefcase, my messenger bag. And if I ever need to do a live, if the thoughts pop into my head of something that I want to have, inspiration strikes, so to speak, I have everything I need ready to go, and I keep it in one little bag with me so I can just sort of pop it all out, set myself up really quickly, and be ready to rock and roll. So that's a bit of tech that you can use, and I'll have links down below for all the different things that I've bought for this little project and kept it with me. But if you have some tech that you'd like us to review, please let us know. I talked to Tyson about this a couple of weeks ago, and I said, one of the things that we talk a lot about in the forums is technology and how we can use technology, but no one's really reviewing anything. So if you are a techie, if you've loved the gadgets and you want to be part of our program, please drop me a line. Let me know. Maybe you can do a video like this, and we can get you live in the forums on the show, and you can tell us about the tech that you are using every day to make your job easier and growing your firm. So that's it for our first edition of Maximum Tech, Maximum Gear, Maximum Gadgets, whatever you want to call it. I am Jay Ruane. Let's go back live to me and Seth. Kind of weird saying that, and they'll be able to close out the show and tell you what's coming up later this week. So we'll see you in about 30 seconds after one of our sponsors. Thanks. All right, Seth, so that was my production equipment. You can fit it in a bag, take it with you. What I'm going to do in the show notes down below is I'll actually put a link to the different things that I have online. So if people want to purchase it, they can get it and they can put it in their bag. I'd like to make this a recurring segment where we have people share their technology, because I know a lot of people who are in our audience use different things to make the best out of their practices. And it's something that we can learn from each and every one of us. So if you have some tech that you're using and you want to be featured on the show, drop me a line, let me know in the comments down below, or send us a DM, and we'll get you on a future show where we can talk about your maximum tech. But Seth, that's going to end it for this week. What are your takeaways?
Look, I really enjoyed the conversation we've been having over the last decade. I still feel like you're leaving money on the table, and it pains me, but that's sort of the great yin yang, the chocolate and peanut butter. And it was great to see Ryan and you with these segments and what we've sort of created here with this community. I'm getting better feedback from what we're doing now than just about anything I've done with social/video. It's really been, I think a lot of people are getting a lot out of it, and I've enjoyed the ride. We've talked about doing something like this for probably the better part of a decade, and to see it come to fruition, just such a joy.
Yeah, it was great to have coronavirus really sort of give us the kick in the pants that we needed to get this done. But we've got a lot of great stuff coming up for you guys. In a couple of weeks, on October 15th, we're going to have our top 10 growth hacks for 2021. That show's coming up, so put it on your calendar now. If you see the invite come across social media, make sure that you say you're coming to the event so you can be reminded for it. And also, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be adding yet another segment to the show, and that's going to be a segment on using automation to move your firm forward and to grow your firm. So we have a lot of good things in store for you. But for now, I want you to pay attention to this. Coming up Thursday, we have a phenomenal show. Seth, tell us a little bit more about that show so we could be getting ready to go.
We got Sarah Kaki coming, and Sarah's a rock star. She is sort of somebody I met early on in her career and watched her sort of pivot, create a second firm, a whole different brand, and talking to her about what are those obstacles and why do that? Why create the second firm and not put it under the one banner? It'll be a great conversation. Yeah,
really looking forward to that. So, all right, folks, that's going to be it for us today. Have a great week. We'll see you in 2 days on Thursday. And for now, we're going to sign off. I'm Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. Look at this. After weeks, I'm still pointing in the wrong direction. He is Seth Price. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you again on another edition of Maximum Growth Live. Bye for now.